I sat at my desk, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, drowning out the quiet chaos of the office. It was a typical Tuesday, the kind where time seemed to stretch endlessly, each tick of the clock echoing my growing restlessness. My fingers danced over the keyboard, but my mind was elsewhere, lost in a labyrinth of thoughts that twisted and turned like the winding streets of my hometown. That I glanced out the window, where gray clouds hung low in the sky, mirroring my mood. The world beyond felt distant, almost unreachable, as I wrestled with the weight of expectations. I was 28 and still trying to find my footing in a life that often felt like an elaborate performance. My colleagues bustled around me, their laughter ringing like distant bells, while I remained an observer, an outsider looking in. The truth was, I was tired. Tired of pretending to be someone I wasn't, tired of hiding parts of myself that longed to be free. My heart ached with unfulfilled desires and unspoken words. I had spent years building walls around my emotions, convinced that vulnerability was a weakness I could not afford. Yet, deep down, I craved connection, an intimacy that felt just out of reach. That's when he walked in. His name was Alex, and he had a way of lighting up the room without even trying. He was new to our team, having transferred from another branch just a week ago. The moment he stepped through the door, everything shifted. He carried an air of confidence that was magnetic. It drew people in like moths to a flame. His dark hair fell effortlessly across his forehead. And when he smiled, oh, that smile, it was as if the sun had broken through the clouds. That I watched him interact with our coworkers, his laughter infectious and genuine. There was something about the way he listened intently when others spoke, his deep brown eyes sparkling with interest, as if each person held a universe worth exploring. It made me feel seen in a way I hadn't experienced in years. But beneath my admiration lurked an unsettling tension, a mix of attraction and fear that sent shivers down my spine. That AS days turned into weeks. Our paths crossed more frequently. We shared brief conversations by the coffee machine or exchanged playful banter during team meetings. Each interaction sparked something within me, a flicker of hope that perhaps this time would be different. But with hope came anxiety. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing on the precipice of something monumental. One rainy afternoon, as we both sought refuge from the downpour in the small cafe across the street from work, our conversation took an unexpected turn. The cafe smelled of freshly brewed coffee and baked goods, a comforting aroma that wrapped around us like a warm blanket. We settled into a corner booth, our laughter mingling with the soft jazz playing in the background. So, Alex began, leaning back in his seat with an easy confidence that made my heart race. "What do you do when you're not working?" I hesitated, caught off guard by the question. Most people didn't care to know about my life outside of work. They were content to keep things surface level. But Alex's curiosity felt genuine, and for some reason, I wanted to share more than just small talk. "I like to read," I admitted shyly. "And I've recently taken up hiking." "Hiking? That's awesome. Where do you go?" His enthusiasm was infectious that I found myself opening up about my favorite trails and hidden spots in nature, places where I could escape from reality and breathe freely. As we talked, I noticed how his gaze held mine with an intensity that made me feel vulnerable yet exhilarated. "Maybe you could show me sometime?" he suggested casually, but there was an underlying current in his voice that sent my heart racing. "Yeah," I replied too quickly, heat creeping up my cheeks. "I'd like that." In that moment, amidst laughter and shared stories over steaming mugs of coffee, something shifted between us, a delicate thread woven into the fabric of our connection. But just as quickly as it ignited, doubt crept in like shadows at dusk. What if this was just another fleeting moment? What if I let myself believe only to be disappointed again? As we left the cafe and stepped into the rain-soaked streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter marked a turning point, one that would challenge everything I thought I knew about love and vulnerability. Little did I know then that Alex would become more than just a fleeting presence. He would become a catalyst for change as the weeks passed. My interactions with Alex became the highlight of my days. Each stolen glance and shared laugh felt like a secret dance, one that left me breathless and yearning for more. Yet, beneath the surface of our budding friendship, An undercurrent of tension simmered, a mixture of hope and fear that threatened to unravel everything I had carefully built. It was a Friday evening when the inciting incident unfolded, forever altering the course of our connection. Our office had organized a casual outing at a local bar to celebrate a recent project milestone. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as co-workers gathered, drinks in hand, laughter spilling over like the frothy heads of our beers. I arrived a little late, feeling slightly out of place as I scanned the room for familiar faces. The dim lighting cast a warm glow over the crowd, but all I could see was a sea of laughter and camaraderie that felt just beyond my reach. My heart raced as I spotted Alex across the room, his head thrown back in laughter, surrounded by a group of colleagues. He looked effortlessly charming, his smile brightening the space around him. Taking a deep breath, I made my way toward him, navigating through clusters of people. Just as I reached his side, he turned to me with that same infectious grin that made my heart skip. "Hey, you made it," he exclaimed, his voice cutting through the noise like a beacon. "Yeah, sorry for being late," I replied, trying to sound casual even as my nerves danced beneath the surface. "Don't worry about it. Come join us." He gestured toward the group, and I felt a rush of warmth at his invitation. But as I stepped closer, I noticed the playful teasing among our co-workers, the kind that often left me feeling like an outsider looking in. "Look who finally decided to show up," one of them called out, laughter erupting around us. "Did you get lost on your way here?" Maybe he was too busy planning his weekend alone. Another chimed in with a smirk. The laughter stung like ice water on my skin. I forced a smile, but inside, insecurity bubbled up, an all too familiar sensation that threatened to drown me in self-doubt. Just as I was about to retreat into myself, Alex stepped forward, his expression shifting from amusement to concern. "Hey, that's not cool," he said firmly, shooting a glare at our coworkers. "Everyone's here to have fun." I appreciated his defense, but felt exposed under their scrutiny. "It's fine," I said quickly, attempting to brush off their comments. "I'm used to it." But Alex wasn't having it. He turned back to me and lowered his voice slightly. "You shouldn't have to be used to that kind of nonsense. You belong here just as much as anyone else." His words struck a chord deep within me, an unexpected wave of validation that momentarily pushed aside my insecurities. But just as quickly as it came, doubt crept back in. Did he really mean it? Or was he simply being polite? The night wore on with moments of laughter and shared stories weaving between us like threads in a tapestry, each interaction drawing us closer while simultaneously heightening my internal conflict. As we played darts and shared ridiculous anecdotes about our work lives, I couldn't help but notice how easily we connected. It felt natural and exhilarating yet terrifying all at once. Then came the moment that would change everything. As we stood side by side at the dartboard, Alex leaned in closer to explain how to aim properly. His breath brushed against my ear, a gentle warmth that sent shivers down my spine. "Just focus on where you want the dart to land," he murmured with an encouraging smile. I nodded but found it hard to concentrate. All I could think about was how intoxicating his presence was, how close we were standing, and how my heart raced at every accidental touch. "Your turn," he said after I threw my dart poorly, missing the board entirely, and laughed lightly at my embarrassment. But before I could step back and regain my composure, our eyes locked for an instant longer than necessary. In that heartbeat, something shifted between us, a flicker of understanding that transcended words. It was vulnerability laid bare, an acknowledgement of unspoken desires hanging heavy in the air between us. Just then, one of our coworkers stumbled over with another round of drinks in hand, breaking the moment like glass shattering on concrete. "Hey, who's winning?" they shouted cheerfully. The spell was broken. Reality crashed back and around us like an unwelcome tide. I forced a smile and stepped away from Alex's magnetic pull, feeling both relieved and disappointed by the interruption. As the night continued with drinks flowing freely and laughter echoing against the bar's walls, I found myself wrestling with conflicting emotions. Excitement mingled with fear gnawed at me relentlessly. The connection we shared felt undeniable, yet fraught with uncertainty. What if this was just another fleeting moment? What if pursuing something deeper meant risking everything? By the time we left the bar, our laughter still lingering in the cool night air. I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just another friendship. It was something more profound, something that terrified me, yet beckoned me forward into uncharted territory. As we stood outside under the glow of streetlights flickering against the darkness, Alex turned to me with an earnest expression that sent my heart racing again. "I had a great time tonight," he said softly. "Me too," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the whirlwind inside me. "Let's do this again soon," he suggested casually, but with an intensity that made it feel anything but casual. "Definitely," I agreed without hesitation, but as we exchanged goodbyes and walked away in opposite directions, my heart pounding wildly, I couldn't shake off the feeling that this was only the beginning of something beautiful, yet terrifyingly complex. Little did I know then how much this night would challenge everything I thought I knew about love, and how much Alex would make me believe again. The days that followed our night at the bar felt electric, charged with an unspoken promise that hung in the air between Alex and me. Every time I saw him at work, my heart raced, and I found it increasingly difficult to focus on anything other than the way his laughter danced through the office like a melody. Our connection deepened in subtle, yet profound ways, each interaction weaving a richer tapestry of shared experiences and emotions. One sunny Saturday morning, I received a text from Alex that sent my heart soaring. "Hey, want to go hiking today? I found this amazing trail I think you'll love." I hesitated for a moment, my mind racing with thoughts of self-doubt. What if I wasn't good enough? What if he was just being nice? But then I remembered the warmth of his smile and the way he had stood up for me at the bar. I couldn't let fear hold me back any longer. "Absolutely. What time?" I replied, my fingers trembling slightly as I hit send. When we met at the trailhead later that day, the sun bathed everything in golden light, casting long shadows on the ground as we set off together. The air was crisp and fragrant with pine, invigorating my senses and filling me with anticipation. As we walked side by side, our conversation flowed effortlessly, from our favorite books to childhood memories, each revelation drawing us closer. "Did you ever get lost as a kid?" Alex asked, a teasing glint in his eyes that I chuckled at the memory. "Once, I wandered too far into the woods behind my house and ended up in someone's backyard. They thought I was a little lost boy." "Were you?" he asked, his voice softening. "Maybe a little," I admitted, feeling a rush of vulnerability wash over me. "I guess I still am sometimes." He stopped walking and turned to face me, his expression serious yet warm. "You're not lost. You're just figuring things out. We all are." His words resonated deeply within me, igniting something raw and real. In that moment, surrounded by towering trees and dappled sunlight, I felt seen in a way that made my heart swell with gratitude and longing. That as we continued along the trail, our hands brushed against each other occasionally, a fleeting touch that sent sparks of electricity through me. Each accidental contact felt like a promise waiting to be fulfilled, yet I remained acutely aware of the barriers I had built around my heart. That we reached a clearing that opened up to breathtaking views of rolling hills and valleys stretching far into the distance. The sight took my breath away. It felt like standing at the edge of the world. We both stood in silence for a moment, absorbing the beauty around us. "Wow," Alex breathed out, breaking the stillness. "This is incredible." "It really is," I replied, glancing sideways at him. The sunlight caught his features just right, illuminating his smile and casting shadows that highlighted his jawline. My heart raced as I caught myself staring, as if sensing my gaze. He turned to me with an expression that held both curiosity and something deeper, a flicker of understanding that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently. "I was just thinking about how lucky we are to have moments like this," I said honestly, feeling more vulnerable than ever before. "Yeah," he agreed, stepping closer, so our shoulders brushed against each other. "It's nice to escape from everything sometimes." The intimacy of that moment hung thick in the air between us, a shared understanding of what it meant to seek solace in nature and connection with one another. As we stood there together, something shifted. It felt like we were teetering on the edge of something monumental. Later that evening, after our hike had ended and we returned to my apartment for dinner, a casual spread of pasta and garlic bread, I felt an undeniable shift in our dynamic. The atmosphere crackled with tension as we settled onto my couch, laughter spilling easily between us as we reminisced about our day. "Okay," Alex said playfully as he leaned back against the cushions. "Who do you think would win in a fight? A bear or a lion?" I laughed at his absurdity, but found myself drawn into his playful energy. "Definitely a bear. They're huge. No way. Lions are apex predators," he countered dramatically. Our banter continued late into the night, punctuated by bursts of laughter that echoed through my small living room. It was during one of these moments, when Alex threw his head back in laughter, that something shifted again. It felt like all the walls I had built around myself began to crumble as we settled down after dinner. Our conversation turned more serious, delving into dreams and fears beneath layers of humor. We shared stories about our families and childhoods, each revelation peeling back another layer of vulnerability. "I've always been afraid of disappointing people," Alex confessed quietly as he toyed with his empty glass. "Especially my parents." "I get that," I replied softly. "I think about it all the time, too." In that moment of shared vulnerability, something profound passed between us, an unspoken bond forged through honesty and understanding. My heart swelled with emotion as I realized how deeply connected we had become over such a short time. But just as quickly as joy filled me, fear crept back in. What if this connection was fleeting? What if opening up meant risking heartbreak? As if sensing my hesitation, Alex looked over at me with an intensity that made my pulse quicken. "You okay?" he asked softly that I hesitated for a heartbeat before nodding slowly. "Yeah, just thinking." "About what?" His gaze held mine firmly, urging me to share. "About how easy it is to talk to you," I admitted quietly. "It's nice." He smiled, a genuine warmth radiating from him that made everything feel lighter despite my worries. "I feel the same way." In that moment, surrounded by dim light and lingering laughter from earlier conversations, I realized how much Alex had come to mean to me. A boy who made me believe again when doubt threatened to consume me whole. Our eyes locked once more, a silent understanding passing between us. I knew we were teetering on the edge of something beautiful, yet terrifyingly complex. A connection filled with potential, yet fraught with uncertainty. And still, despite all my fears, I wanted to take that leap into the unknown. I wanted to believe in us. The weeks turned into a beautiful blur of shared moments, laughter, and late-night conversations that stretched into the early hours. Each encounter with Alex deepened my feelings, weaving a complex tapestry of joy and fear within me. I found myself at a crossroads, caught between the exhilarating thrill of our connection and the paralyzing fear of what it could mean that it was a Friday night when everything changed, a night that would become etched in my memory forever. We had planned to watch movies in my apartment, a casual gathering that felt charged with unspoken tension. As I prepared popcorn and set up the couch, I couldn't shake the feeling that tonight was different. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could sense that something monumental was about to unfold. When Alex arrived, he brought with him a bottle of wine and an infectious energy that lit up the room. "I figured we could use something to make this movie marathon even better," he said with a grin, his eyes sparkling in the soft light. "Perfect," I replied, trying to mask my nerves with enthusiasm. We settled onto the couch, the familiar comfort of our friendship wrapping around us like a warm blanket. But beneath the surface, tension simmered, a current that crackled between us like static electricity. As we watched the first movie, a light-hearted romantic comedy, I found myself stealing glances at Alex, who was completely engrossed in the film. His laughter rang out like music, filling the space between us with warmth. Yet as the movie progressed, I felt an undeniable pull toward him, a longing that had been building for weeks. Halfway through the film, during a particularly romantic scene, I glanced over at him just as he turned to me. Our eyes locked for a moment that felt suspended in time, an electric connection that sent shivers down my spine. My heart raced as I realized how close we were sitting. Our knees brushed against each other, igniting sparks of desire. "Can you believe they did that?" he asked, breaking the spell as he gestured toward the screen. "Right? So unrealistic," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. But as we continued watching, I found it increasingly difficult to concentrate on the movie. My thoughts drifted back to our hikes, our laughter, the way he made me feel alive and understood in ways I had never experienced before. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I was falling for him. As if sensing my internal struggle, Alex turned to me again, his expression shifting from playful to serious. "Hey," he said softly. "Are you okay? You seem distracted." I swallowed hard, feeling exposed under his gaze. Yet just thinking, I admitted, "About what?" His voice was gentle, yet insistent that I hesitated for a heartbeat. Weighing my options, should I take the plunge? Should I risk everything for a chance at something real? My heart raced with uncertainty as I opened my mouth to speak. "About us," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. His brow furrowed slightly as he processed my words. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I took a deep breath, summoning every ounce of courage within me. "I think there's something between us, something more than just friendship." The air in the room shifted. It felt like time itself had come to a standstill. Alex's eyes widened slightly as he absorbed what I had said, an array of emotions flickering across his face. Surprise, hope, fear. "I feel it too," he confessed quietly after a moment that felt like an eternity. "But what does that mean for us?" My heart raced at his admission. It felt like we were standing on the edge of a precipice together, ready to leap into the unknown, but terrified of what awaited us below. "I don't know," I admitted honestly, "but I want to find out." He shifted closer on the couch until our knees touched again. It sent shivers racing through me. "What if we're risking too much?" he asked softly, vulnerability etched in his features. "Maybe," I replied, feeling raw and exposed. "But isn't it worth it?" In that moment of shared vulnerability and honesty, something shifted within both of us. A realization that this connection was too powerful to ignore. The tension between us thickened as our breaths mingled in the small space separating us. Without thinking, I leaned closer, my heart pounding wildly in my chest, as if drawn by an invisible force. Alex held my gaze steady as our faces inched closer together. Every heartbeat echoed louder than before. And then it happened. Our lips met in a tentative kiss, soft and hesitant at first, like two souls finally finding their way home after wandering too long in darkness. The world around us faded away. All that existed was this moment. The warmth of his lips against mine and the intoxicating rush of emotions flooding through me as our kiss deepened, growing more passionate. I felt all my fears melt away like snow under spring sunlight. Every doubt and insecurity faded into nothingness as we lost ourselves in each other's embrace. A dance of vulnerability and longing finally fulfilled. When we finally pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed, I could see the same realization reflected in Alex's gaze. This was no longer just friendship. We had crossed an invisible boundary into something infinitely more profound. "I can't believe we just did that," he said softly, his voice laced with disbelief and joy. "Neither can I replied with a breathless laugh, my heart soaring higher than ever before. But even amidst our shared happiness lingered an undercurrent of uncertainty. We both knew this moment would change everything about our dynamic. Our friendship transformed into something deeper, yet fraught with new challenges ahead as we sat there together. Still reeling from what had just transpired, I realized how much Alex meant to me. Not just as a friend, but as someone who made me believe again in love and connection despite all my fears. And though uncertainty loomed on the horizon, I knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning of our journey together, a journey filled with passion, vulnerability, and endless possibilities waiting to unfold. The days following our first kiss were a whirlwind of emotions. Exhilaration mingled with uncertainty, joy interspersed with fear. Alex and I had crossed a threshold that irrevocably altered the landscape of our relationship. But with that transformation came a host of challenges that I hadn't anticipated at work. The atmosphere felt charged with unspoken tension. Our colleagues had always been friendly, but now I sensed a shift. Whispers seemed to follow us, and glances lingered just a moment too long. I tried to brush it off, convincing myself that I was being paranoid, but every time I caught Alex's eye across the office, my heart raced with both excitement and dread. One afternoon, as we sat together in the break room sharing a quiet moment over coffee, one of our co-workers approached us. A woman named Sarah, who had always been friendly, but now wore an expression that sent a chill down my spine. "Hey, you too," she said casually, but her tone was anything but light. "You've been spending a lot of time together lately. Are you dating?" My stomach dropped at her question. I glanced at Alex, whose expression mirrored my own surprise and apprehension. We hadn't officially labeled what we were. Were we ready to share that with the world? We're just friends," I stammered, feeling a wave of guilt wash over me as I spoke the words. But even as they left my lips, I knew they were a lie. "Just friends?" Sarah raised an eyebrow, skepticism evident in her voice. "Right." The tension in the room thickened as she continued to look between us, her gaze probing for answers. "Well, whatever you're doing, just be careful. You know how people talk." Her words hung in the air like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over what had once felt like a blossoming romance. As she walked away, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, a mix of anxiety and frustration at how quickly things could turn sour. Later that evening, as Alex and I met up for dinner at our favorite restaurant, a cozy little Italian place, I couldn't shake off the lingering unease from earlier. The ambience was warm and inviting, but my mind was elsewhere. "Everything okay?" Alex asked as we settled into our booth, his brow furrowed with concern. "Yeah," I replied too quickly. "Just work stuff." He studied me for a moment before nodding slowly. "You sure? Because it feels like something's bothering you." I sighed heavily, feeling the weight of my insecurities pressing down on me. "It's just," Sarah asked if we were dating today. Alex's expression shifted slightly, surprise mixed with understanding. "And what did you say?" "I told her we're just friends," I admitted, shame flooding through me as I realized how much I had downplayed what we shared. "Why would you say that?" His voice was gentle yet firm. "Because it's complicated." Excelme, frustration bubbling over. "What if people start talking? What if it gets back to my family?" He leaned back in his seat, visibly taken aback by my outburst. "You're worried about what your family thinks?" "Yes," I replied sharply before softening my tone. "I just don't want to deal with their judgment right now." Alex looked away for a moment, his expression unreadable. "I get it," he said finally, "but hiding what we have doesn't feel right either." His words struck deep within me, a truth that resonated painfully against the backdrop of my fears. But even as I grappled with my emotions, another part of me felt drawn to him, the part that wanted to embrace this connection fully despite the risks involved. That night ended on an uneasy note. We parted ways with lingering tension hanging between us, a reminder of the complexities we faced together. The days turned into weeks following our first kiss. External pressures began to mount. At work, whispers turned into gossip. Co-workers exchanged knowing glances whenever Alex and I entered or left a room together. The tension grew palpable. It felt like everyone was waiting for something to happen, waiting for us to either confirm or deny their suspicions. Then came the moment that shattered everything. That I received an unexpected phone call from my mother one evening while sitting at home alone. An ordinary night that quickly spiraled into chaos. Her voice was tight with concern as she asked about my job and life in general before steering the conversation towards something much darker. "I heard some rumors about you," she said cautiously. That my heart sank. Dread washed over me like ice water. "What kind of rumors?" "About you and a co-worker," she continued hesitantly. "Is there something you need to tell me?" The walls closed in around me as panic surged through my veins. "Mom, are you dating someone?" she pressed further, her tone shifting from concern to disappointment. That I hesitated. Every instinct told me to protect myself, to shield Alex from whatever fallout might come next, but honesty clawed at my throat like barbed wire. "Yes," I finally admitted, feeling both liberated and terrified by the admission. "I'm dating Alex." Silence stretched between us like an abyss before she responded, her voice laced with disapproval and confusion. But he's different from what we expected for you. What does that mean? My voice trembled with anger and hurt. I just want what's best for you, she replied defensively. You know how people can be. The conversation spiraled into an argument filled with accusations and misunderstandings. My mother's traditional views clashing violently against my desire for authenticity and love. By the time we hung up, tears streamed down my face. I felt utterly shattered, not only by her words but by the realization that acceptance might never come easily for me or for Alex, that in the days that followed, everything felt strained. My relationship with Alex became fraught with unspoken tensions as external pressures mounted around us like walls closing in on all sides. We tried to navigate our feelings amidst growing workplace gossip and familial expectations. But each conversation seemed tinged with hesitation and fear. One evening after work, we met at our usual cafe, the same place where our connection had first begun to blossom amidst laughter and shared stories. But now it felt different somehow, heavy with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Hey, Alex greeted softly as he slid into the seat across from me. Hey, I replied quietly, avoiding his gaze as I stirred my coffee absent-mindedly. After a moment of silence hung between us like fog rolling in off the ocean, he finally spoke up. We need to talk. My heart raced at his words. Dread settled in my stomach like lead as I braced myself for whatever was coming next. I've been thinking about everything. The rumors at work, your family. He began hesitantly before pausing, as if weighing his next words carefully. Yeah, I don't want this to tear us apart, he said finally, the vulnerability in his voice cutting through me like glass shattering against concrete. It feels like it already is, I admitted softly, my heart aching at the thought of losing him amidst all this chaos. We can figure this out together, he urged gently, his eyes searching mine for reassurance amidst uncertainty swirling around us like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. But even as he spoke those words filled with hope, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had irrevocably changed between us, that our once carefree connection was now clouded by external pressures threatening to pull us apart, that as we sat there together, the weight of our unspoken fears hanging heavily in the air. I realized how fragile everything felt, how easily love could slip through fingers grasping desperately at its edges while navigating turbulent waters ahead, filled with uncertainty waiting just beyond sight. And still, I wanted nothing more than to believe in us despite all odds stacked against us, because deep down, I knew love was worth fighting for, even when faced with insurmountable challenges threatening its very existence. The days following our tense conversation at the cafe felt like an emotional roller coaster. Alex and I navigated the uncertainty of our relationship with tentative steps, each day bringing new challenges and revelations. Despite the weight of external pressures, a flicker of hope remained, one that urged me to confront my fears and embrace the love that had blossomed so unexpectedly that as the weekend approached, I found myself reflecting on everything that had transpired, the laughter we shared, the vulnerability we had unveiled, and the love that had ignited between us. I realized that I had been holding back, allowing fear to dictate my choices rather than embracing the joy that came from being with Alex. That on Saturday morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. I wanted to fight for what we had built, no matter how complicated it might be. I sent Alex a text. Can we meet? I need to talk. When he replied, almost immediately, my heart raced. Of course. Where? Let's go to the park, I suggested, recalling how much we both enjoyed our time outdoors. As I made my way to the park later that day, butterflies danced in my stomach, a mix of excitement and anxiety. When I spotted Alex sitting on a bench beneath a sprawling oak tree, his expression was serious yet hopeful. He looked up as I approached, his eyes searching mine for answers. Hey, he greeted softly. Hey, I replied, taking a deep breath to steady myself. I've been thinking a lot about us. He nodded, his gaze unwavering. Me too. I don't want to hide anymore, I said, my voice steadying with each word. I want to embrace what we have, whatever it is. His expression softened, relief washing over him like sunlight breaking through clouds. Really? Yeah, I continued, feeling a surge of courage. I'm tired of letting fear dictate my life. You make me feel alive in a way that I've never experienced before. Alex smiled, a radiant warmth radiating from him that filled me with hope. You make me feel the same way. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, the sounds of laughter and children playing in the distance creating a backdrop for our conversation. Finally, Alex spoke up again. What about work? What about your family? I can't control what others think or say. I admitted, feeling the weight of those concerns lift slightly as I spoke. But I can control how I respond to it. And I choose you. His eyes sparkled with emotion as he reached for my hand, our fingers intertwining naturally, as if they were always meant to fit together. I choose you too, he said softly, that in that moment, everything felt right. The world around us faded away as we embraced the connection we had fought so hard to protect. It was a choice filled with courage and vulnerability, a commitment to face whatever challenges lay ahead together as we left the park hand in hand. Something shifted within me. It felt like shedding layers of doubt and insecurity that had clung to me for far too long. With each step beside Alex, I felt lighter, more at peace with who I was becoming. In the weeks that followed, we faced challenges head-on, navigating workplace gossip and conversations with family members who struggled to understand our relationship. But through it all, we remained steadfast in our commitment to one another. One evening at dinner with my parents, a tense gathering filled with unspoken words, I finally found the courage to speak up about my relationship with Alex. My heart raced as I shared our story, how we met, how we connected, and how much he meant to me. To my surprise, while there were moments of discomfort and hesitation from them initially, they listened and slowly began to understand the depth of my feelings for Alex. It wasn't an easy conversation. There were tears and disagreements. But ultimately, it was a step toward acceptance. As summer turned into fall, our relationship continued to blossom, each day bringing new adventures and deeper connections. We explored new hiking trails together, shared late-night conversations under starlit skies, and celebrated both small victories and big milestones. One crisp autumn evening, as we walked through a park filled with golden leaves swirling around us like confetti, Alex stopped suddenly and turned to face me, his expression serious yet tender. I know this might sound crazy, he began hesitantly, but I can see a future with you. My heart raced at his words. Hope surged within me as I gazed into his eyes, filled with sincerity and warmth. You're not crazy, I replied softly. I can see it too. And in that moment, a powerful realization washed over me. Love was worth fighting for. Not just for us, but also for ourselves. As we stood there together amidst falling leaves, the world around us fading into insignificance, I knew one thing for certain. This journey had transformed me in ways I never expected. It had taught me about vulnerability, acceptance, and the beauty of embracing love despite its complexities. The road ahead would undoubtedly be filled with challenges, but now armed with newfound strength, I was ready to face them head-on alongside Alex by my side. And as we shared a kiss beneath the canopy of autumn leaves, a promise sealed in warmth and tenderness, I felt an overwhelming sense of hope wash over me, a belief that love could conquer all obstacles if only we dared to embrace it fully.